Welcome into the latest edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. My name's Barrett Salee. I appreciate you checking out the show. If you missed me, I apologize. We did two shows last week while I was at Disney World. They were not video versions. They were audio versions. However, we came back Friday night, talked a little bit about the college football playoff. Friday night, not necessarily the best time to record a podcast. So go back, check it out. They're all available on YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcast, all that stuff. So we're back. We're back in the home studio. We're going to go and do this every single day now, back on the normal schedule. So again, tell your friends, leave a review, 5-star, 1-star, what you like, what you hate. I love all of that insight because this show is for you. This show is for the college football fan. And as I say every single week, every single day, college football is the most undercovered sport in America. We don't care about the NBA here. We don't care about NHL, although the Thrashers are coming back, which I am very excited about, at least not officially, but yeah, it's going to happen. But you, the college football fan, deserve more. You deserve your favorite sport all the time. And that's why I encourage you, no matter who you listen to, whether it's Pate, Piquel, Bratton, any of those guys, Connor O'Gara, check us out. Put us all together. Make a playlist in your mind or in reality, because we all provide, I think, great content and different points of view. And that is important in this day and age. So I'm glad you checked us out. Again, subscribe, review, all that other stuff if you can. Today's show is interesting. I mean, honestly, I did not expect something like this to happen. We're going to talk about gambling, but not in the way that we normally do on this show, whether it be bet online odds for Heisman Trophy or conference championships or national championships, playoff appearances. We're not talking about that kind of gambling. It's a kind of gambling that kind of jumped out of nowhere. And I don't know how much I believe it, but we will tell you, and I will tell you what I think the reason for this Mo Hasan story is. And it's probably not what you think. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I think that's a very, very interesting story. A transfer quarterback heads to Missouri. Missouri? We'll see. We'll talk about that, what it means for Eli Drinkwitz right now and moving forward. A reminder, I'm a partner with Breaking Tea. Breaking Tea does a great job wearing the moment, viral shirts, NIL shirts, like this one right here of Tennessee starting quarterback Nico Iamaleava. Nico burst onto the scene in the bowl game. A lot of Heisman hype for Nico. If you've listened to the show, if you've watched this show, you know that I love this kid. He's more Hendon Hooker than Joe Milton, and Tennessee fans, that's exactly what you want to see. So rep your boy, Nico Iamaleava. Certainly going to help him out, going to raise the awareness for Nico from a broad national perspective as well. Go to breakingtea.com/smothered and covered. breakingtea.com/smothered and covered. You will help me out. You will help Tennessee out. And most importantly, you will help Nico out. So again, breakingtea.com/smothered and covered. So again, also, it's almost Brave season. The Braves are coming back. The World Series run is starting right now in Northport, Florida. They're going to come back north. They're going to roll through the NL East. So breakingtea.com/Barrett if you want to get some Braves gear as well. All right. This whole story makes me chuckle. I mean, it just makes me chuckle. And if you're not watching, here's the headline from the Nashville Tennessean. Ex-Vanderbilt quarterback who threw 17 passes, I love how they dropped that in the headline, claims the Italian mob offered cash to fix SEC games. All right. The details of this are even more hilarious. Apparently, he was approached at Jason Aldean's bar on Broadway to fix games. All right. The fact that he got approached at Jason Aldean's bar is absolutely hilarious because I would imagine Italian mobsters would probably stick out like a sore thumb at Jason Aldean's bar, because what that is, a bunch of drunk cowboys, bunch of karaoke people, bunch of bachelorette parties. Oh, and here's this Italian mobster offering a Vanderbilt backup quarterback to fix games. The mental picture of this just is awesome. I absolutely love it. And in my mind, I don't know if this is actually how it happened. We'll probably never know how it happened. But in my mind, Mo's just sitting at the bar. Some Italian mobster with chains and a nice little hat, expensive suit, rolls up and is like, "Hey, bro, you play for Vanderbilt? Hey, I want to fix some games. I'm going to offer you $500, $600, $700 to fix some games," without even knowing he's not even a starter. I don't know if that's happened. I have no idea if that's how this went. But in my mind, that's how it went down. So, first of all, Mo Hasan has only attempted 17 passes. He was 11 for 17 for $158 and a touchdown in 2 years at Vanderbilt. And then he went to USC and didn't play. That in and of itself is hilarious that a backup quarterback is being approached. But here's the thing. It's exactly what these guys do. It's exactly what these guys do. And if you think that, oh, these games never get fixed, there's no way big time games. And look, Vanderbilt is in the SEC, so I think we can consider it a big time game, whoever they play. Maybe not for Vanderbilt on Vanderbilt's side, but whoever they're playing. Yes, games get fixed. And the reason I know that is my former colleague at CBSSports.com, Dennis Dodd, wrote a fantastic piece about how games were fixed. He actually talked to a former game fixer, a mobster. And what this story was about, and you can look it up, Google it, it's really fascinating. They're not fixing games. And I mean, obviously with Mo Hasan as a backup quarterback, they're not going to fix an outcome of a football game. Basketball game, sure. We've all seen blue chips. We know Tony fixed a game. Nick Nolte got furious at him, but they still won the game. They didn't cover the spread. Look, that doesn't happen in football. Basketball, yeah, I'm sure it happens. And actually in this story from Dennis Dodd, they say it happens. It's a lot easier to fix a game. But in football, it's more about player props. It's more about, hey, if you're running back X, maybe don't give as much effort in the fourth quarter if you're under about 10 or 15 yards, especially if it's a blowout one way or the other. And in this story from Dennis, he specifically mentions a couple of times, and usually it's like the MAC or the Sun Belt, but he specifically mentions this mobster, hey, this is what I did in this conference. He didn't say which teams, he didn't say which players, but in this conference. And I think that is fascinating because in this day and age, it's probably going to happen more. Because some of these guys in lesser conferences, they're not going to have the NIL deals that other players do. Now, there are safeguards, obviously. It's not the NCAA that guards against this thing. And certainly, I think in the era of legalized sports gambling in a lot of different states, there are already safeguards built in. Hey, you know what? I think it was a Temple game, basketball game this year, or a couple of weeks ago, actually. Hey, there's odd betting patterns in a game. Red flags, casinos don't want to lose. So they mark it. They flag it. They report it to the cops. I think this misconception is that legalized gambling is going to increase the amount of game fixing, prop fixing, stat fixing. And in reality, it has brought it down because there are regulations. There are regulators that look out after this stuff. But my other part of this Mo Hasan thing, and it is kind of funny to say, oh, he threw 17 passes. To me, if this happened, and again, in Jason Aldean's bar, in my mind, it's at a bar with bachelorette parties and drunk cowboys, and that's neither here nor there. Why would this happen if Mo's not going to play? Well, it's simple. It's very, very simple. It's to get an in. It's to get an in with the Vanderbilt players. Plain and simple. And I think Vanderbilt is, I think, a decent target for mobsters to do this. If it happened, because SEC, you're going to get more money on both sides. You can roll in some money late and you can cash in. So I think this could, if this did happen, one, it's for player props. Again, that's how you do this. It's not the outcome. And then B, it's to get in with the entire Vanderbilt team, organization, for Mo to sort of be a recruiter, to say, hey, running back X, you're going to get the start. You're set at 59.5 in Vegas. We're probably going to lose. We're Vanderbilt. We're probably going to lose. So, hey, if you're in the fourth quarter and you're like at 49 yards, go down. Don't go after, don't kill yourself trying to put up stats and score touchdowns when they really don't matter. Especially at Vanderbilt, because let's be honest, a lot of these guys are not going to go to the NFL. That's reality. So to me, two things. One, I actually believe that this happened. And again, maybe not in the cartoonish way that in my mind, that my mind spins, but I believe this did happen. And that's just a guess. I have no inside information. But I don't believe that we should joke about this either, because of Hasan only throwing 17 passes. It's, in my mind, probably because this group, whatever it is, mobsters, whether they're Italian or whoever, wanted to get it in with the Vanderbilt program, because Vanderbilt actually is a target for this kind of thing. Yeah, generally it's the MAC or Sun Belt or Mountain West. And it's harder to do this in college football. But I believe it. And look, we saw with the Alabama coach, baseball coach a couple years ago, last year, helping his buddy out, and the buddy taking the phone call at the ticket booth with the knowledge that a pitcher is no longer going to be starting. So these things do happen. If you don't think these things happen, go look up Dennis Dodd's piece. It is wildly fascinating. And we have had instances of this in the past. I think it was Toledo 10, 15 years ago. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a MAC team. So this stuff happens. And that's kind of why I believe that Vanderbilt would be a target. It's fascinating. I wonder if anything comes of it. I mean, the NCAA is too busy to investigate with other stuff and losing lawsuits and things like that. But if there is some sort of investigation into this, and it would probably be the FBI or whatever, maybe this thing does snowball, or we just find out a little bit more about this whole process, because it is out there. And Dennis does a great job detailing that. A reminder, breakingt.com, speaking of Vanderbilt, this is Vanderbilt's rival, or at least in the minds of the Commodores, Nico Iamaleava. Check it out. breakingt.com. That's breakingthet.com/smothered and covered. They got a great variety through all kinds of different colleges. So breakingt.com/smothered and covered. All right. Drew Pyne, former starter at Notre Dame when Tyler Buckner went down a couple years ago. He goes to Arizona State last year, and now he is going to Missouri. And I think a lot of us kind of like, what? Drew Pyne's going to Missouri? I mean, is he just accepting the fact that he's a backup quarterback? If so, good for him, because I think all of us that have watched him play sort of realize, yeah, at the FBS level, that's what he's going to be. So two things on this. One, I'm surprised that he doesn't drop down to a group of 5 team. I think he'd actually be a good quarterback in the group of 5. I wouldn't say he was good at Notre Dame a couple years ago. He was serviceable. He was all right. And if you're all right at Notre Dame, you could probably go somewhere in the group of 5 and actually be a star. So I am surprised he went to Missouri. Now, I wonder what Eli Drinkwitz sold him on, because it's not starting. Brady Cook's there. It's definitely not starting. And maybe it's the kind of thing where, okay, I like this offense. I'm going to go here, learn, get more knowledge, see if I can translate that to somewhere else next year. Or maybe Brady leaves and he's the starting quarterback at Missouri, whatever it is. But you like the system. He likes the system. He learns more about it. And then the next step of his career could be finding a place to start, taking the knowledge he learns from Eli and going somewhere else, or getting a bigger perspective on how to be an assistant coach and maybe a head coach. I don't know Drew Pyne's mindset. I do know that he can be serviceable somewhere. But it goes to something else. And maybe these two things are connected. Maybe these dots can be connected. And look, I think they might be. There's a thing I've talked about for a very long time. And in the past, in the pre-transfer portal era, it was more like Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and teams like that operating this way. It's called preventative recruiting. I don't want that dude. He's not going to start for my team, but I'm going to make damn sure this team and my rival and my opponent doesn't have him because I think he's pretty good. Not good enough to start, but good enough to at least be a starter somewhere, potentially for a team that is on our schedule. Nick Saban did a great job of that. He did a great job of that back in the day. Nowadays, yeah, the bigger teams do it, but the smaller or middle tier teams, and sorry, Missouri, you still are a middle tier team in terms of consistent success. And that's what I'm talking about here. So all of you Missouri fans, you can yell at me on X. That's fine. A lot of you do. There's that one podcast who absolutely hates me for reasons I can't explain, but you're not a blue blood. I think that's fair to say. But that's the kind of, those kind of teams are excelling in this situation. Because the more the merrier on that depth chart. Because those guys like Drew Pyne, he could go somewhere. He could go to Mississippi State. He could go to Arkansas and at least present a challenge to Missouri. Now, I know Missouri's going to be a top 10 team, as they should, because Brady Cook's back, because Luther Burden's there and all that stuff. But he's good enough to challenge you if you run into wherever he goes. So preventative recruiting is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And I think when you look at his skill set, he can play. And this is my friend. I neglected to mention the writer of this story, which came out Monday morning, is Matt Hayes. Does a great job over at Saturday Down South, radio host on 1010 XL in Jacksonville, Florida. Absolutely love that dude. Absolutely love that dude. So, but again, Brady Cook is the unquestioned starter. Don't fall into this trap and thinking that he's not. And, you know, this is something that Eli Drinkwitz has done in the past. He's the Southern Miss quarterback who had 4 years of starting experience with the Missouri. And, you know, this is before Brady Cook got the job and solidified the job. I'm like, wow, Jack can play. And I got a couple messages from Missouri folks and like, no, that's not why he's here. So Eli does do this. Believe me, he absolutely does do this. It'll be fascinating to see what happens. But with Missouri, and this is sort of a segue to kind of the hype that they have. When you look at what the dynamic of the SEC is, I've seen a lot of people, and look, when I put out my college football playoff projections, I don't have Missouri in one of the top 12 seeds. And that's not because I don't think that they're one of the 10 best teams in the country. Set aside 12, they might be one of the 10 best teams in the country. The problem is the SEC is going to knock Missouri down. I'm much more convinced that if Missouri is a top 12 team in reality, it might not have the resume to fit into the top 12 because of how the system is set up. And again, this is why the system sucks. Because look, if you want to say it needs to be the top 12 teams regardless, fine. That would never happen. It just wouldn't happen for a lot of different reasons, mostly legal reasons. But I do think Missouri can at least contend, but not because of Drew Pyne. Not because of Drew Pyne at all. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. It will be interesting to see what happens moving forward. And last thing before we hang up the virtual headsets, I don't have my pods today because they disappeared at Disney World. Very upset about that. Mike Hart leaving the Michigan staff, former running back. He was a running backs coach for Jim Hart. I think from a legacy standpoint, from a visibility standpoint, that's a big deal because Michigan fans recognize him, relate to him, and I think he has sold the product as a blue blood. Problem is he hadn't recruited all that well, but yet he's coached very, very well. Obviously, with Corum and Donovan Edwards, but those guys are super talented. Does a running backs coach change and increase the ability for those guys to become more productive? Not really. It's a position, it's a coaching position that is more about recruiting. But from a visibility standpoint, I think it is sad to see him go. But Michigan fans, I would not consider this the end of the world. It's not Armageddon. It's not Deep Impact. It's nothing like that. But it's at least interesting to see where Jim Harbaugh's, or I'm sorry, where Jim Harbaugh, obviously not, it's Sherrone Moore, but to see where his mindset is, because Hart was connected to Jim. And now maybe it's proof that Sherrone Moore is kind of taking ownership of a program that expects to not only be in the new playoff, the 12-team playoff, but obviously has the ability to win it. So a staff shakeup, we'll see. We'll see what happens. That'll do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Appreciate you checking the show out. Give us a rating. 5-star, 1-star, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you consume your podcast. Looking at the analytics, pretty much all of you are on Apple Podcasts. So tell your friends, share it. Let them know let us know what you think. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Rumble channel. There is video portions of this show pretty much every single episode if I'm not outside of the home studio. And even sometimes if I am out of the home studio, still can find a way to get it done on the video side. Enjoy your Monday, everybody. Tuesday, we might have a very different kind of show. Talking a little bit about new age NIL and how things can be done in a different way. So that'll be tomorrow. Until then, enjoy your Monday.